The scent of pine and betrayal is a potent mix, and December always smelled like both in the Sterling mansion. They say Christmas is about love and forgiveness. For me, December 24th was always about survival. For 2 long years, I had played the role of the docile, slightly overwhelmed fiancée, enduring the icy reign of Amelia Sterling, the woman who insisted she was the matriarch of the most prominent real estate empire on the coast. She was my fiancée, Marcus's mother, and she was poison-wrapped in Chanel tweed. My secret was the only thing that kept me sane. I wasn't just some bright-eyed young woman Marcus had plucked from obscurity. That's the narrative Amelia had carefully crafted and maintained, the one she used to justify every subtle, humiliating jab she aimed at me. She treated me like an unwelcome charity case, reminding everyone, from the family lawyer to the kitchen staff, that I was only here by the grace of the Sterling name. Her weapon was always public, polite cruelty. She would innocently point out a flaw in my gown just as I greeted an investor, or helpfully correct my pronunciation of a French phrase right in the middle of a formal toast. Each incident was a microaggression, too small to fight without looking hysterical, but lethal in accumulation. This year, the stakes were higher. The annual Sterling Christmas Eve gala wasn't just a dinner. It was the soft launch of my integration into the family, a sign that the wedding was imminent. It was also the night Amelia planned to deliver her final crushing blow. Marcus was oblivious. He saw his mother as eccentric, demanding, but ultimately devoted. He saw my quiet endurance as patience. I saw it as strategic retreat. I had spent my life preparing for this kind of battlefield, though I never imagined it would be dressed up in fairy lights and velvet ribbons. My real name, the one I hadn't used in 2 years, carried weight that dwarfed the Sterling fortune. But I needed proof, undeniable, documented proof, before I could drop the facade. You don't take down a master manipulator with emotions. You take them down with a ledger. And I had finally found the ledger. The first major confrontation happened 3 weeks earlier, during the Christmas tree decorating. Amelia had commissioned a 6-figure custom ornament for Marcus and me, a delicate glass rendition of a dogwood branch, signifying our new beginning. I watched as she accidentally knocked it off the low table just as I was reaching for it. It shattered into 1,000 glittering pieces. "Oh dear," she said, her voice dripping with false concern. "Clumsy hands, darling. No matter. We can always get another." Just shows how easily things break, doesn't it? It wasn't the ornament she cared about. It was the message. My fragility. My disposable nature. I smiled. A perfect, empty smile. "Of course, Amelia. No worries at all. It was just glass." But inside, the gears of the final stage of my plan clicked into place. I needed her to escalate. I needed her to be so comfortable in her power, so arrogant in her superiority, that she wouldn't see the trap closing around her. The humiliation continued relentlessly. She canceled the caterer I had personally selected, citing their unacceptable lack of pedigree, and replaced them with a family friend known for serving mediocre, overcooked food, ensuring my efforts to contribute were undermined. She changed the seating chart at the last minute, moving me from the seat of honor next to Marcus to the farthest corner of the children's table, directly facing the kitchen door. The implied message was clear. I was an afterthought, a child, an inconvenience. Marcus, catching the look of genuine hurt I allowed to surface for a brief moment, tried to intervene. "Mother, that's not right. Evelyn should sit here." Amelia fixed him with a look that could curdle milk. "Nonsense, darling. Evelyn is so wonderfully helpful, and that little corner offers the best access to the serving staff. She'll be instrumental in managing the flow. Besides," she added, turning to me with that tight predator's smile, "it's good for her to be out of the spotlight for a bit. She needs to understand that belonging to this family is about service, not spectacle." I lowered my gaze, a picture of meek resignation. "She's right, Marcus. I'd be happy to help, It killed him to see me comply, but it was what she wanted. It was the public execution of my pride, and I allowed it, because I knew that, in 48 hours, she would be paying for every single calculated slight, every cruel word, every shattering piece of glass. My revenge wasn't going to be a quick, satisfying outburst. It was going to be a demolition of her entire constructed reality, orchestrated down to the final, fatal second. The evidence was finally in my hands. A series of encrypted files, a paper trail buried deep within the Sterling financial records, detailing years of high-level identity fraud and embezzlement, crimes that traced back not to Marcus's late beloved mother, who died in a tragic accident 7 years ago, but to the woman currently living in her gown and sitting in her chair, the real Mrs. Sterling had been dead for 7 years, and this woman, Amelia, had simply walked into the most exclusive life imaginable, seamlessly taking the reins of a billion-dollar empire. She had convinced Marcus, a grieving son, that she was his mother, returned from a mysterious, undocumented retreat abroad. The audacity was breathtaking. I needed the perfect stage for the reveal, and there is no better stage than Christmas Eve dinner in front of the assembled family and the board members. The hum of anticipation in the mansion now felt less like holiday cheer and more like the tense silence before a grenade detonates. I checked the small encrypted USB drive I wore on a necklace underneath my dress. The key to her undoing, a single tiny piece of tech, rested right over my heart, waiting for the right moment. Tonight, she was preparing to ruin Christmas dinner. What she didn't know was that I wasn't just planning to save it. I was planning to expose the imposter and claim my rightful place. A power inversion so total, so devastating, it would become the new Sterling family legend. I let her continue her petty tyranny, secure in the knowledge that she was tightening the noose around her own neck with every sneer. The real fun was about to begin. Every humiliating moment was fuel for the fire I was about to start, a fire that would consume her carefully constructed life by the glow of the Christmas tree. The clock was ticking towards midnight, and the time for gentle suffering was almost over. I just needed one more night of her arrogance to ensure the final strike was flawless. I needed her at her worst. The door creaked open, announcing her arrival. She was wearing the massive emerald necklace, the one that Marcus's real mother had left to him, and the sight of her wearing the true Amelia Sterling's jewels was a final, sickening provocation. She looked at me, sitting patiently at the children's table, and smiled, a pure, unadulterated triumph. "Ready to be useful, Evelyn?" she asked. I stood up, my posture perfect, my smile serene. "More than you know, Amelia." The Christmas Eve gala was a masterpiece of opulence and suppressed resentment. Hundreds of candles flickered, bathing the ballroom in a golden, deceptive warmth. The guests, bankers, board members, and extended family were a collection of the city's elite, all unknowingly witnessing the final act of a long-running, high-stakes con. I played my role to perfection. The sweet, slightly awkward fiancé, tending to the needs of the children and the elderly, effectively marginalized by Amelia and her maneuvering. Amelia, of course, was the undisputed star. She glided through the room in a gown that must have cost more than my first apartment, her emerald necklace catching the light like a beacon of fake authority. Every word she spoke was a calculated performance, reinforcing her position as the foundation of the Sterling legacy. She even managed to use the centerpiece, a towering gingerbread replica of the Sterling manor, as a prop for her disdain. "Evelyn, dear," she called out, loud enough for a cluster of important investors to hear, "did you manage to save any of those little candy canes for the children? I noticed you were quite enjoying them earlier. It's important we remember our guests, not just our appetites, isn't it?" The jab was twofold, painting me as greedy and childish. It was a classic Amelia move, A slight delivered under the guise of an etiquette lesson. My face flushed, a natural, involuntary reaction that she savored. I felt dozens of eyes on me, judging me through the lens she provided. Marcus, across the room, looked mortified, but still, he hesitated to confront her directly in such a large crowd. This was the moment of escalation I needed. I had been humiliated hundreds of times, but this time, the insult had a purpose. It pushed me one step closer to the precipice, allowing me to fully embody the victim status that would make the eventual power inversion so satisfying. "I apologize, Amelia," I said softly, ensuring my voice carried the right mix of embarrassment and sincerity. I was helping young Thomas find the star topping. "I promise I'll be more mindful." I bowed my head slightly, accepting the public rebuke. The investors exchanged knowing glances. Poor girl. Marrying into that family. What they didn't know was that while Amelia was worried about my candy cane consumption, I was monitoring the Sterling family's electronic security protocols on my phone, making sure the external server connection I needed for the big reveal was stable. The dinner commenced, a parade of unnecessarily heavy silver service and strained conversation. Amelia made sure to ignore me completely, focusing all her attention on the board chairman, Mr. Hemlock, who controlled a crucial block of Sterling shares. Her goal was clear: sideline me and reinforce her control over the company's future through Hemlock. Then came the true sabotage. The main course was Amelia's pride and joy, an antique family recipe for glazed ham. Marcus had warned her against it, explaining that I, several weeks ago, had developed a severe documented allergy to the specific juniper berry used in the glaze. It wasn't life-threatening, but it would cause severe respiratory distress and require an immediate departure from the gala, thereby ruining the evening and proving me to be a liability. As the ham was carved, Marcus looked at Amelia with panicked confusion. "Mother, the glaze! We talked about this. Evelyn is allergic." Amelia sighed, a heavy, dramatic sigh of martyrdom. "Oh, Marcus, must you always fuss? It's Christmas. I used the original recipe. Evelyn, darling, surely you can just scrape the glaze off. It's just a little berry, not plutonium." Honestly, being so fragile about everything, it makes people wonder if you're truly prepared for the rigors of being a Sterling wife. She delivered the line with a practiced air of weary concern, implying my allergy was merely manufactured drama. This was it, the final, unforgivable transgression. She wasn't just attempting to humiliate me, she was knowingly trying to cause me physical harm to push me out of the event. The attempt to ruin Christmas dinner wasn't accidental. It was an act of aggressive social cleansing. I felt a genuine spike of adrenaline and fury, but I forced my features into a mask of polite distress. I stood up, my hand instinctively going to my throat. "Amelia, please. I coughed, a dry, convincing sound. "Sit down, Evelyn," she commanded, her voice suddenly sharp and low, her mask slipping for a brief second to reveal the steel underneath. "Don't create a scene. You can eat the side dishes." But I didn't sit. I took a deliberate, slow breath, steadying myself. This was the moment the victim fights back, but not with a shout, with a whisper. I knew if I left now, she would win. If I stayed and ate, I would suffer. The only option was to execute the plan. I looked at Marcus, who was finally rising, his face a mixture of betrayal and anger directed at his mother. "Evelyn, we need to leave. Now." "No, Marcus," I said, my voice gaining strength, drawing all eyes to the center of the room. "We don't need to leave. We need to clear the air." Amelia laughed, a brittle, cynical sound. "Clear the air? Are you threatening to have a tantrum, dear? On Christmas Eve?" I walked slowly, deliberately, away from the children's table and towards the grand fireplace, where the entire family and the board were seated. My heart was pounding not from fear of the juniper berry, but from the magnitude of the truth I was about to unleash. I reached the mantel, placing my hands on the cold marble surface, drawing strength from the physical grounding. For 2 years, I have been silent. I have watched the disrespect, the humiliation, the intentional malice, all because I believed the lie that Amelia Sterling was your mother. Marcus, I stated, my voice ringing clearly across the suddenly silent room. The chandelier lights seemed to intensify, focusing the gaze of every single person on me. Amelia's eyes narrowed, a flicker of genuine panic replacing her smugness. What is the meaning of this, Evelyn? You're clearly unwell. Marcus, control your fiancée. Marcus was frozen, looking between his mother and me, unable to process the shift. The meaning, Amelia, I continued, meeting her eyes without flinching, is simple. You ruined Christmas dinner, and in doing so, you confirmed everything. You were so confident in your disguise, so sure of your power, that you tried to poison me to cement your control over Marcus and this family. I reached up and touched the small, nearly invisible, pearl-encrusted clasp of the necklace around my neck. But you forgot one thing, Amelia. You assumed that the girl you were humiliating was powerless. You assumed she had no defense. You assumed she was just Marcus's future wife. A deadly quiet descended. Only the crackling of the fireplace interrupted the silence. The real Mrs. Sterling, Marcus's mother, died 7 years ago in a car crash in Tuscany, I announced, the words hanging heavy in the festive air. Her death was officially confirmed by both Italian and U.S. authorities. She never returned from a retreat because she couldn't. I finally pulled the small USB drive, the key, from my necklace, holding it up like a tiny digital indictment. This woman, I declared, pointing directly at Amelia, is not your mother. She is a professional imposter, a high-level corporate spy who used a grieving son and a massive estate as her personal gold mine. And this drive holds the evidence of 7 years of identity theft, bank fraud, and the embezzlement of over $40 million from the Sterling Foundation. The gasp that ran through the room was deafening. Amelia's face, moments ago flushed with rage, went deathly white. The mask was utterly gone. Pure terror was all that remained. The silence was so absolute it felt physical, like a suffocating pressure descending upon the Sterling gala. The flickering candles seemed to cast dancing shadows of doubt across every face. Amelia Sterling, the supposed matriarch, stood paralyzed, her hand clutching the emerald necklace, the very symbol of the identity she had stolen. The terror in her eyes confirmed my accusation more effectively than any document could. Marcus broke the stillness, his voice a raw, ragged whisper. Evelyn, what are you saying? This is insane. She's my mother. Your mother, Marcus, was a kind, honest woman, I stated, keeping my focus locked on Amelia. This woman is an artist of deception. The real Mrs. Sterling died 7 years ago. You grieved her, but this woman appeared, capitalizing on your vulnerability, feeding you just enough familial details she gleaned from her initial infiltration to make the fantasy believable. I took a step closer to the dining table, where the centerpiece, the gingerbread Sterling manor, stood. I wasn't just exposing a fraud. I was executing a full-scale public inversion of power. You called me clumsy for breaking a 6-figure ornament, Amelia, I challenged, my voice now steel, echoing slightly in the vast room. You put me at the children's table. You tried to poison me tonight, to discredit me. You assumed I was a nobody, a disposable distraction. But that was your first and fatal mistake. I looked directly at Mr. Hemlock, the board chairman, whose expression was a mixture of professional shock and dawning horror. Mr. Hemlock, you are currently negotiating the transfer of substantial company assets, placing them under the sole discretionary control of this woman. Have you considered the legal implications of that transfer, given that she has no legal identity, no right to the Sterling name, and is, in fact, an international fugitive wanted for corporate espionage? Amelia finally found her voice, a high-pitched, desperate screech. "She's lying! She's hysterical! She's trying to sabotage me because she's jealous of the family money." She lunged towards me, her long fingers reaching for the USB drive. Before she could touch me, a man in a discreet black suit, who had been standing near the entrance disguised as a security guard, stepped forward and gently intercepted her. "I wouldn't advise that, Ms. Davies," the man said calmly, using her real surname. "The evidence is already secured. I didn't just bring a USB drive, I brought backup." "Let me finish the story, Marcus," I said, my gaze softening slightly for him. "My real family doesn't sell real estate, Marcus. We secure assets. My father runs the global private investigation and asset protection firm, Ascendant Group. When you first introduced me to Amelia, my firm immediately flagged her profile. She is a ghost, a known corporate identity thief specializing in high-net-worth widows and grieving families. The shock escalated into pandemonium. Gasps erupted. Muffled conversations exploded into the tense air. Board members started pulling out their phones, attempting to confirm the impossible. "I didn't suffer your mother's cruelty for 2 years, Marcus," I continued, holding his gaze. "I suffered Amelia's cruelty while completing a forensic audit on your entire financial empire. I had to let her humiliate me publicly, at the tree trimming, at the dinner table, and tonight, with the ham, to ensure she felt utterly secure. I needed her to believe I was a weak distraction, so she wouldn't suspect I was running the deepest, most complex investigation of her life right under her nose." I approached the fireplace where a small silver tray held a glass of eggnog. I picked up the glass. Tonight, Amelia thought she ruined Christmas dinner by trying to force me into an allergic reaction. But she didn't just target me. She targeted the woman who was ready to expose her. The woman whose real inheritance, the Ascendant Group, controls more wealth and power than the Sterling name ever could. I turned the USB drive over, revealing a small engraved crest, the Ascendant Group logo. I am not just Marcus's fiancée. My legal name is Evelyn Hawthorne, and the Sterling family is now under the protection of the Ascendant Group. Effective immediately, I am seizing control of the foundation and all major assets to perform a comprehensive cleanup of the financial damage caused by Ms. Davies. I looked at Amelia, Ms. Davies, who was now weeping silent, furious tears into the shoulder of the guard. "Merry Christmas, Amelia. You ruined the dinner, but you also handed me the perfect stage for the reveal. Your seasonal revenge attempt failed. The victim you tried to crush is now your judge." The final devastating inversion of power was delivered to Marcus. "Marcus, I didn't come here just to marry you. I came here to save you and your family legacy from an enemy you mistook for family. The question is, do you trust the woman you thought was fragile, or the imposter who tried to harm you?" Marcus stood silent for a long moment, staring at the crying imposter, then at the engraved crest on the USB drive, and finally, at me. A slow, painful nod affirmed his choice. "Get her out of my house," he commanded, his voice shaking with betrayed grief and new, hard-won clarity. As Ms. Davies was led away in front of the stunned guests, the board chairman, Mr. Hemlock, immediately approached me. His entire posture transformed from dismissive observer to deferential subordinate. "Ms. Hawthorne," he began, pulling out his business card, "we need to talk about the emergency board meeting and the future of the Sterling legacy. Thank you for saving us." I had endured the humiliation, planned the revenge, and executed the ultimate inversion of power on the most sacred, festive stage. The Sterling Christmas dinner was ruined, yes, but in its place, a new dynasty was born. My dynasty. The quiet, underestimated fiancé had become the undeniable, powerful head of the family, all by the light of the Christmas tree.